So good evening once again, everyone. Now should we start? I think it's already 7:10.
Yeah, 7:10 you can start. I think request all to mute their.
Yes. So please kindly mute everyone. And if there are any questions, then we will be discussing it at the end of the session. So once again, a very good evening to everyone. I'm Dr. Ajit Kumar Khilnani, working at the ENT department of Gujarat Adani Institute of Medical Sciences, Bhuj in Gujarat. Okay, so just please let me know if I am audible properly and the screen is visible so that I can continue.
Yes, audible.
Okay, sir. So regarding my today's session, so this is my disclaimer. Whatever presentation I am here doing it is just to facilitate the competency-based assessment so that we as faculty members can understand how to apply it at our own institutes. Then it is neither a final nor any official document, and there may be some other formats of assessment, but this is what I have understood of competency-based assessments, and these are my personal views. Now, the objectives of my today's session are that after this session ends, we should be able to describe what are the characteristic features of competency-based assessment and compare it with the traditional assessment that we have been doing since so many years. Now, we should realize that the Medical Council of India, erstwhile Medical Council of India, it revamped the whole UG curriculum after a gap of more than 2 decades. So there are many changes that we need to understand so that we can apply it. Then we should be able to plan the internal assessments, which can be formative in nature, they can be periodic, summative in nature in ENT and ophthalmology. Then we should get an idea how to prepare the marking schemes for different types of assessments. And then there is one more new terminology which we'll be talking about in the later part of this session, that is regarding the remedial measures. It is a new entrant in the assessment format, remedial measures in the formative, internal, and the summative assessments. So these are my objectives of today's session. And broadly, I'll be dividing my talk into these 4 parts. First part will see the characteristic features of assessment, what is actually assessment, and how this assessment, the new assessment, it differs from the traditional assessment. Then in part second, again, I'll differentiate between the formative, the internal assessment, the summative assessment, and how these are interrelated. Then in next part, I'll be talking about some tools and techniques which can be used for formative and internal assessment. And finally, how to plan our number of internal assessments. So broadly, my session will be dealing with these 4 parts. Once again, I'm requesting everyone to kindly mute themselves so that there's no disturbance. So what is the purpose of assessment? The purpose of assessment is to either prove or improve. So what we want to prove is, so prove means that we want to certify something, or we want to prove. Okay. So the purpose of the assessment is to prove. Now here we can think of, to prove means it is a kind of summative assessment which is taken at the end of a course. So it can be either in the form of pass or fail, that is to certify something, or progression, that is if the student progresses from one phase MBBS to another phase, or if he is appearing for any selection exam. So in that case, the purpose of assessment is to prove. Otherwise, it is to improve. Improve means it is an ongoing assessment for improving the quality of learning. So whatever formative assessment we are taking, whatever internal assessments we are taking, they are actually not to prove something, but to improve. Now, any assessment tool, it should have these following characteristics. It should be valid. Valid means that it should actually measure what it is intended to measure. Then it should be reliable. Reliability means that it should be reproducible in various situations. Then feasibility. Now, however good assessment method be? If it is not feasible, then it loses its utility. Then it should be acceptable also, and it should have an educational or learning impact. Now, all these characteristics, they combine to form what we call the utility of assessment. And one important point to note here is that utility of assessment is a product of all these characteristics. It is not a sum of all these characteristics. It means that if any of the characteristic it is 0, then the assessment method will be 0. It will have no utility. For example, we talk about many small group assessment methods like mini CEX and all that, but actually we see because of constrained faculty, they are not feasible. So if we try to implement it at UG level, then maybe it is difficult. So it will that assessment method will lose its utility. So utility of any assessment, it is the product of all these characteristics. That is validity, reliability, feasibility, acceptability, and it should have an educational impact or learning impact. Then there is one term, context specificity. Now here we are dealing with the competencies. So we know what are competencies, what are objectives, but competencies, they need to be assessed multiple times to improve the reliability and validity. Now that multiple time, it can be by multiple assessors, or it can be by multiple assessments, or it can be by multiple assessment tools. So whenever we are using all of these combined, then it increases the validity and the educational impact of any assessment method. Then we should always assess a student in different contexts. Different context means we can assess in the student in a demonstration room, or again at the bedside. Then we can assess via OSCE, that is structured clinical examination. The same case can be assessed by GRACE presentation or even by VIVA. So when we assess the student in different contexts, then it gives the validity and reliability to our assessment method. Another important feature of assessment is that it should be aligned to the objectives and the teaching learning methods. Because if it is not aligned, then the assessment method loses its validity. Then it will actually not assess what it is intended to assess if it is not aligned. So that is a golden, sometimes it is also called a golden triangle, where the objectives, they are aligned with the teaching learning methods, and assessment, rather we go backwards. The assessment is aligned with the teaching learning methods and the objectives. So as we move up the pyramid, so from knowledge domain, we gradually move on to the psychomotor and the affective domain. Then our method of assessment changes accordingly. So if we want to check just the knowledge domain, then we can have assessment methods in the form of written examinations, in the form of say VIVA examinations. But as we move up the pyramid, our assessment methods also change. For example, if we want to see how a student performs a particular task, then we can go for demonstration, we can go for the observation of the procedural skills. So the assessment methods change according to the clinical competence. Now we have many assessment opportunities. So broadly they can be divided into informal assessment opportunities or formal. Formal means the internal assessments, exams which we are taking in the university examination. But this is again more important because it actually forms the basis of the learning. So that is informal opportunities. They provide much needed feedback. So feedback is a very important component of assessment, especially informal assessment, and it helps to improve the student. Then it allows the student to open up, because during informal opportunities they can understand by, for example, if a student is coming to clinic, so I'll ask few questions and then I'll ask the feedback. So that is as good as informal assessment, and it helps to take away the stress of assessment. So it can be taken at the end of a lecture or end of a particular topic or a system. It can be MCQ based, short answer question, VIVA. But important point of informal assessment is that it is only to assess the learning and providing the feedback, not for computing the internal assessment scores. Because if we compute the internal assessment score, then it becomes formal assessment. So there is definitely a role of informal assessment in improving the learning of the student, but again, the marks will not be computed for the internal assessment scores. Then formal opportunities, we all know internal assessment exams that we are conducting, then university exams. Now, internal assessment exams, they tell us how a competency was learned and how much was learned. But university will only tell us how much was learned. So, important point here to know is that internal assessment can be considered as both formative and summative, because it tells us how it was learned. That is the process, and how much it was learned, that is the content. So both these internal assessments as well as the university, they test the different aspects, and one is not a replacement for other. So both have their definitive value. Now, if we see the competency-based assessment, the key features are that it helps the learners to acquire and develop competencies, and there is direct observation of the learning process, especially for the competencies which require skills training. And all competencies have to be assessed. In many subjects, in fact, there are even certifiable competencies which have to be certified in the logbook. Then the new competency-based assessment, it is criteria referenced. Now, if we see the previous traditional assessment, it was norm referenced. So we used to evaluate one student with respect to another student, that he is more knowledgeable than other students. So accordingly, we used to give the marks. But now, this assessment, it is criteria referenced. Criteria referenced means that there is a standard fixed criteria that if a student performs up to this level, then only he will be allowed to pass to the next level. That is criteria referenced. Then it is evidence based. That is, actually we are giving the evidence that he has learned. That is what I was talking about, the certifiable competencies, and even the logbook entries, the portfolios that we'll have to maintain. It is the evidence based. And then it is participatory in nature. Participatory means the learner and the teacher both have equal responsibility of the content and their delivery, and active participation of the student. It is mandatory in competency based assessment. So criteria reference means extent of learning against a particular set standard, and direct observation. So we keep the logbook entries, and there is active participation of the learner and participation of the students with feedback and reflections. So continuing with the key features, CBA focuses more on the internal assessment. Now, internal assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment, CA, these things I'll tell you in the later part of this session. But here in the CBA, more emphasis is given on internal assessment. While if we compare it with the traditional curriculum, we were more concerned that whether student passes the university exam or not. Even the students were concerned, they used to read in such a way that they have to just pass the university exam. But it is not like that now. More emphasis is on internal assessment. CBA will be ongoing and longitudinal. Ongoing means it will be throughout the process of learning. It is not like that after 3 months there will be one exam, then again after 3 months. It is not like. Examinations, assessment methods, they will be more frequent now, and it will be longitudinal. Longitudinal means that there are some subjects which will run along the phases, across the phases rather, like the major subjects, medicine, community medicine, even the AdCom module. It will learn across the phases. So the student will learn some aspect of the particular topic or a particular subject in one phase, it will continue in the next phase. And so also will the assessment continue in the next phase. So it will be more longitudinal. Then it will integrate the knowledge, the skill, and the affective domains, and despite maintaining the subject specific identity. So even if we are talking here about ENT and ophthalmology, but again we will have to assess some affective domain also, which pertains to our subject or our expertise. So I hope I am audible and visible.
Yes, doctor. Go on.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So what is the purpose of competency-based assessment? For a teacher, it is to decide if the student has acquired the desired competencies so that he can be promoted to the next level. For a student, it is to get a timely feedback from the teacher so that he improves and acquires the desired competencies. And as a whole, if we see for the system, it is quality assurance. Now comes the types of the assessments. Now we know that we have one formative assessment. Now this assessment, it is conducted during the instruction with purpose of providing feedback. Now here a very important term to note is feedback, and it is, we can say it is a type of day-to-day assessment. Summative assessment, we all know, it is an assessment conducted at the end of the instruction to check how much was learned. An internal assessment, it is a range of assessments conducted by teachers with the purpose of knowing what was learned and how was learned. Now we'll see what is the relationship between these three types of assessment. So is internal assessment a type of formative, or is internal assessment a type of summative assessment? So I would rather say that internal assessment is both summative as well as formative. Formative in the sense that we give feedback after any internal assessment exam so that it improves the performance of the learner. Summative in the sense that some part of the marks of any internal assessment, they contribute to the final internal marks. So if we think like this, then we can say that internal assessment can be both formative as well as summative examination. So this figure, I hope it will help us clear the differentiation or relationship rather between the formative and internal. So formative assessment, it starts from the day the student joins a particular subject or a phase, and it ends just after the preliminary examination, that is just before the university examination. So this is university assessment, that is summative assessment. The formative assessment goes up till the summative assessment. From the point it starts, it includes many internal assessments. They can be 1, 2 or 3, whatever is feasible, including the preliminary examination. So preliminary examination is also one of the types of internal assessment, but we say preliminary because it just comes before the university, and it generally includes the full syllabus, but otherwise it is an example of internal assessment. Now we see here below that as the student progresses through the course or through the phase, he regularly receives the feedback during the formative assessment. But once formative assessment ends, then comes the summative assessment. After that, it is just a pass or fail thing. So there is no much use actually of feedback after formative assessment. So I hope this slide will be useful to understand the relationship between formative, internal and university assessment. Now formative versus summative. So summative assesses how much the student has learned, and formative assessment how he has learned. That is, it understands the process. So a feedback, it is an important aspect of a formative assessment. Now a very useful analogy was given to understand the formative and the summative assessment. So when a cook tastes the soup, that is a formative assessment, because here there is still a scope of improvement. The cook may say that no, some changes are required in the soup so that it is better. But once the guest tastes the soup, that is summative. That is again we can say pass or fail. Either the soup will be tasted good or not. So there is no scope for improvement after summative assessment. But for formative with feedback, there is always a scope for improvement. So as I was talking about that feedback has a very important role in internal assessment and formative assessment. It provides an authentic environment of learning, which is based on direct observation. Then active involvement of the learner makes students aware of their performance, especially when we give the feedback. And remedial action can be initiated in time. So this remedial action, how it is to be done and what is it, I'll talk about it later. So feedback should usually be built in with the class assessment, and there are various models of giving feedback. Maybe many times we are giving feedback, maybe we are not aware of these the models, but there are various models like sandwich model, Aloba technique, Pendleton model. In sandwich technique, for example, the negative feedback, it is sandwiched between two positive feedbacks. So we start with something positive, then we actually what we say the negative feedback we give, and again we encourage the student with some positive feedback. So that is sandwich. So whatever technique we utilize for giving feedback, but it should be regular feedback and it should be a structured feedback. then what assessment we are doing depends on what we are assessing. Whether we are assessing the whole task, for example, perform the slit lamp examination in ophthalmoscopy, or perform the ear examination, or we are assessing the individual learning domain, that is say only knowledge we are checking, or we are checking the competency as a whole, perform Rene test, like this. So our assessment method will depend on what we actually want to assess. So for that, we should have a toolbox ready with us. That it is a listing of available tools which are suggested for a particular competency or subcompetency and aims at improving the value of the assessment data. So Dr. Tejinder Singh sir had written an article in 2005 regarding this assessment toolbox. So here we can see that if we want to document a work, then we can go for logbook or we can go for clinical cards. If we want to assess by direct observation, then clinical evaluation exercises are there. Procedural skills, observation of the procedural skills are there. Then if you want to discuss an individual case, then case-based discussion. Similarly, if we want to give a feedback on the performance, so that can be done by patient questionnaires and peer assessment tools. So this is a toolbox. It will all depend, these are the various assessment tools, and they will all depend on which part of assessment or which aspect of assessment we are trying to assess. Now to simplify it, I prepared this table. So here we can see that for formative assessment, we can have offline tools, we can have online tools. Now these online tools, many of us might have experienced during this COVID lockdown. So offline tools can be clickers, 3 things, muddiest point. Now these are all different methods by which we can emphasize on important points. Exit slip or short answer question, 1 word answer, 1 minute preceptor model or 1 minute paper, short viva. Then there can be some online tools like Google Forms, which every one of us at our institute, we have used it in various forms, this Google form. Then again, there are different tools. We might not have used all these, but some of us have used it. For example, here we have an experience of Mentimeter. Then occasionally Kahoot had used, then Active Prompts, Google Docs. So there are a variety of assessment tools, and these are especially important for formative assessment, so that it gives immediate feedback to the student. Now this part of my talk was actually about the general aspects of the assessment, the different types of assessment, what are the key features of assessment, what are the characteristics of assessment. Now here I will be actually dealing with how the changes have affected our assessment in the ENT and the ophthalmology subject. So this table, if we see the first part, it is based on the GMER 1997, and the second part, it is from GMER 2019, that is the graduate medical education regulations, which were in the form of Gazette in 2019. Now, what is the differences between the internal assessment, what we used to do, and now what we'll be doing? Now, if we see the number of internal assessment examinations, in older curriculum, it was left to the institution. However, in newer curriculum, it is for ENT and ophthalmology said that no less than 2 examinations in a professional year. It means one examination we can have internal assessment, the second will be prelim. So prelim is a part of internal assessment. So like this, we can have at least 2. If it is feasible at some institutes, they can go for more than that also, but the minimum number is 2. Then regarding the internal assessment marks, so we all know that up till now we used to give 10 internal assessment marks for the theory and 10 for the practical. Now it has been increased substantially to 100 for theory and 100 for practical or clinical examination. The weightage was like it should be 20% of the total marks, but now absolute number has been given 100. Now this 10 came because overall our paper was of 100, including theory and practical. So out of that 20%, we used to get 10 and 10. But now absolute number has been given, 10 for theory, 100 for theory and 100 for practical. So there is no need of weightage. Now, up till now, the internal assessment marks, they used to contribute to the total university marks. It means the rank of a student depended on the internal assessment marks also that he got. But from CBSE curriculum, the internal assessment marks will not be added to the marks of the university examination, but they will only be shown as a separate entity under a separate heading in the score sheet or a grade card. So that is again a change. Then eligibility criteria to appear in the university examination. So up till now, the student must have secured 35% of the total marks fixed for internal assessment. So if we see the total marks were 20, so up till now, if a student gets 7 combined in both theory and practical, then we used to make him eligible to appear in the final examination. But now the change is that the student should get 50% combined in theory and practical, but not less than 40% in each. Okay, so here it was 35% combined. Here it is 50% combined, but separately also he should have more than 40% for eligibility to appear in the university exam. Though these marks will not be counted in his scorecard, but they are required to make him eligible for university examination. Continuing with the differences regarding the logbook, there was not clearly defined role of logbook in the traditional curriculum, but now it is said that 20% of the internal assessment marks, theory and practical, should be from the logbook assessment. And logbook submission is eligibility criteria for university assessment. So if a student does not submit the logbook, then he will not be eligible to appear in the university examination. Then there was no mention of any remedial measures in the traditional curriculum, but now the remedial measures are to be applied for the students who have not attained the required internal assessment marks. But how and when are they to be applied? That is to be left for the university and the individual institute to decide. Now, regarding the end of the posting clinical assessment, sometimes we call it term ending exam. When the student comes for our clinical posting, where once it ends, we take an exam. So in the traditional curriculum, it was not clearly defined again, but here it is written that at an end of posting clinical assessment shall be conducted for each clinical posting in each professional year. It means that if a student is coming to ENT for 8 weeks of clinical posting, and if we divide it into 4 postings of 2 weeks each, then we will have to take 4 clinical posting examination. So after an end of a posting, there should always be a clinical posting, clinical examination at the end of this posting. So these were the changes regarding the internal assessment. What changes are with the university assessment in the new curriculum? Now, regarding the university assessment, in the older curriculum, there was one main exam and a supplementary exam, which was to be held not later than 6 months after publication of the results. So if we see that in many parts of our country, many colleges, there used to be a minor batch. For example, if a student fails in a particular phase, then he was included in a minor batch, and after the 6 months, another exam was taken. But in the newer CBME curriculum, there will be one main exam and supplementary exam not to be held not later than 90 days. That is 3 months after the declaration of the result. So the student, what I think is, the student will be able to continue with the next phase, and before 90 days, he will have to just complete the previous phase exams, but he will remain with the main batch. If he again fails after 90 days, then maybe he will go back with the junior batch. Then regarding the university assessment marks, there was one theory paper of 40 marks. Up till now, here there will be one theory paper of 100 marks now. Then oral viva we used to take of 10 marks, and clinical were 30 marks. Internal assessment was 20 marks, so total was 100 marks, including viva, including internal assessment, including theory, including practical. But here if we see that internal assessment marks, they are not to be considered for the university marks. So university marks will be only of 200 marks, 100 for theory and 100 for clinical or practical examination, which will include Viva. Again, a major change. Up till now, the Viva marks were included in the practical marks. But from now onwards, up till now, the Viva marks were added to the theory paper. And the practical was only of 30 marks. But now, Viva will be included with the practical examination. So this is again a major change. And here we can see the 200 marks of internal assessment are not to be shown in the university marks. They are just eligibility criteria. They won't contribute to the total score of the student. Then regarding Viva marks, I already told that they were to be included in theory up till now, and it was of 10 marks. Now here the number of marks is not specified. So again, that by rational thinking, we can decide how much marks we can allot for Viva examination, but they should be included in the practical marks. Then regarding the pass criteria, that also has changed. Up till now, the student must have obtained 50% in aggregate with a minimum of 50% in theory and practicals. But now it is mandatory 50% marks separately in theory and clinicals. And clinicals will include Viva. Initially, theory was including Viva. Okay, so these are some of the changes in the GMER 1997 and GMER 2019 with respect to the internal and the university assessment. Continuing with the university assessment, regarding the grace marks, in older curriculum it was mentioned that a student can get a maximum of 5 marks at the discretion of the university who has failed only in one subject but has passed in all other subjects. It means that if a child is failing in 2 subjects, then he will not get grace marks as per the old curriculum. And if he is failing in one subject by up to 5 marks, then he can pass. This has now changed that a student can get a maximum of 5 marks for clearing the examination as a whole, but not for clearing a subject. It means if a student fails in 2 subjects, 1 in 2 by 2 marks, 1 in 3 marks, and by giving 5 marks, if he is passing the exam, then he will be given grace marks. So here he can even pass 2 subjects if the total grace marks are less than 5. Then regarding the question paper, the structure of the question paper as mentioned in the GMER 97, it was short answer question and objective type with marks given to each question. Only this much was mentioned, but in our new curriculum, it is well defined. There should be MCQs which should not constitute more than 20% of the total marks. There should be long answer questions. Actually, they are structured essay type questions. There should be short answer questions, and important aspect, there should be at least 1 question on AdCom. So this is again a new addition as regard the structure of the question paper is concerned. So what will be the components of the internal assessment marks? We say that 100 marks are for theory and 100 marks for practical. So there will be theory papers, there will be practical examinations, there will be logbook assessment in which we have to give 20% of the internal assessment marks in theory and practical separately. Then there will be also the internal assessment for AdCom training or AdCom module, which can be in the form of short notes, it can be in the form of creative writing, Viva, or clinical scenarios and structured clinical examinations. There should be at least 1 assessment based on direct observation of skill, attitudes, and communication at all levels. So we see here that AdCom is also gaining importance in our assessment strategies now. Now marks distribution. So this is not given anywhere, but whatever I could understand reading the whole GMER 2019 and comparing it with 1997. So I have just made a tentative list, but it is again open for suggestions, and it is up to the individual institute and the university to make their own internal assessment distribution, marks distribution. Now we see that the theory marks will be of 100 total internal assessment. The practical or the clinical marks will be of 100 total. So how to divide this 100 marks? Now, ENT training will be given in two phases, in phase 2 and phase 3 part 1. Phase 2 will have only clinical posting of 4 weeks. Phase 3 part 1 will have all the theory lectures and the clinical postings also. So regarding the logbook, so when we talk of the logbook, we are actually talking about the day-to-day formative assessment. So logbook, 20 marks are to be given for theory. As I told you, it constitutes 20% marks, and 10 plus 10, because clinics will be in part phase 2 also and part 3 phase 1 also. So I've distributed it into 10-10. Theory exam, if you want, we can take, but as such, in second MBBS, we do not take theory exams. So regarding theory day-to-day assessment, all the 20 marks will be for logbook phase 3 part 1. Then, as I told you that we have 8 weeks of clinical posting. Most probably it applies to ophthalmology also. So these things will remain the same. So it is written that 4 weeks and 4 weeks, but I have divided it into 2 weeks, for 4 posting of 2 weeks rather than 2 weeks postings of 4 weeks, because 4 weeks is a very long time. So if we consider that the student will come to ENT and ophthalmology posting for 4 times of 2 weeks each, then there will be 4 clinical end of the posting examinations, 2 in phase 2 and 2 in third part phase 1. So again, it is a clinical practical examination, so there is no question of theory marks being allotted, internal assessment. So I have given 5 internal assessment marks for all the end of the posting exam, for every end of the posting examination. And then first internal examination, it will be of a theory and practical. So theory, we will convert it, whatever paper we are taking 100 marks, 200 marks, we'll convert it into from 40, and practical from 30. Similarly, preliminary examination, again 40 and 30. Now, here again, it's a point of discussion that whether preliminary examination should be given more marks or not. But what I feel is that preliminary examination is also one type of internal assessment examination. And if we allot more marks to preliminary examination, then maybe the child thinks that whatever he has missed during all this time, maybe he can cover it only in the preliminary exam. So to avoid that thinking, I have given equal importance to the internal assessment as well as the preliminary examination. But again, as I said, it is up to individual universities and the institutes to decide, and it is again a point of discussion. Now these 20 marks for the theory logbook, or rather we can say day-to-day assessment, and for practical logbook, this needs to be divided further. How will we divide theory? Now day-to-day assessment includes many elements. It includes attendance, it includes the presentations of the student, which can be seminars, reflective writings, and timely submission of the logbook. So I have divided these 20 marks in the theory like this. Now see, 75% attendance is mandatory to appear in the university. So if a child is getting less than 75%, he will not be eligible. So between 75 and 80, we can give 2 marks, 80 to 85, 4, more than 85%, 6 marks. So increasing the marks will also encourage the student to attend the classes regularly, and maybe it improves the attendance percentage of the child also. Then seminars, we can give 2 marks per seminar. So total can be 8 marks for that. Similarly, reflective writing, 2 marks per reflection. So during one phase, a student, at least every student should write 2 reflections and present 4 seminars. And timely submission of the completed theory logbook, 2 marks. So total internal assessment of logbook, it will be 20 marks for theory. For clinical and practicals, they can be again divided into 10-10 in phase 2 and phase 1. Again, for attendance, now here 80% is mandatory in clinical postings. Here 75% for theory, but for practicals it is 80%. So below 80 there is no question of eligibility and giving marks. So from 80 to 85 we can give 1. Similarly 85 to 92 and more than 93. Again, during the clinical posting, he should have presented 2 seminars and 1 reflection in each of the postings. So if we combine all the marks, then it will be 10 for phase 2 clinical posting and 10 for phase 3 part 1 clinical posting. Now see these 20, 20 10, 10, total 40, which is the 20% of total internal assessment. Internal assessment is 200 marks, 100 for theory and 100 for practical, as can be seen here. So this is only the classification that I told you, the distribution, this one, it is only for these 20 marks, which we say it is day-to-day assessment, or what we call the formative assessment in the form of logbook. So that is how I have distributed the marks, but it can be done in any better way. Now regarding the university assessment, we know that there will be one theory paper of 100 marks. Previously it was of 40 marks, but now it will be of 100 marks. So again, it can be devised or in any structure. Here I have showed it like this. So we can have two sections where it is given that the MCQs should not constitute more than 20%. So we can have 20 MCQs, 10 in each section. Then we can have 4 long answer questions in each section. This marks I have given it as per my understanding, but it is subject to discussion, that one LAQ can have marks 6 marks, and SAQ can have 3 marks for one SAQ. So for one section, there will be 10 MCQs, 4 LAQs, 4 SAQs, and 1 SAQ of ADCOM. But this ADCOM SAQ, to make it 100, I have given 4 marks for one ADCOM SAQ. Similarly, for section 2 also, there will be the same distribution, the same number of questions and the same number of marks. So this is how I have tried to structure the university assessment paper. But maybe there are some better ways that we can discuss. Now see, when I say that LAQ can be 4, so from which topics we will give LAQs? Naturally from the topics which are more relevant, which are more important clinically. So to decide that, because topics, if we go on to list the contents of the ENT or the ophthalmology topics, it will be a big list. So maybe we get at least content area, we can get 30 to 35 topics, broad topics. But questions are limited. So from which topic questions should be given? For that we require a blueprinting. So blueprinting is actually, we can say it's a mathematical calculations by which we can get that from this topic, this type of question and this number of marks can be given. So talking about details of blueprinting may be not feasible today, but just to give an idea that by blueprinting we decide the impact of the content area and allot impact score. Impact score can be from 1 to 3. Low impact area we can give score of 1. More impact area we can give score of 3. For example, if we take an example for ophthalmology, if we consider retinoblastoma or any malignancy, then it may have a less impact for the student as compared to the topic of cataract. Then we give a frequency score that is again from 1 to 3, depending on the frequency of asking the questions on that content area. If more number of questions are being asked, then a more score is given. If less number of questions are asked, then a score of 1 can be given. Then we decide the weightage coefficient of each content area. So this is the impact score multiplied by the frequency score, and this is divided by the sum of all the I into F's. This will give the weightage coefficient of each content area. Then we will multiply that weightage coefficient by the total number of questions. For example, here I say if my paper will contain a total number of 38 questions, including 20 MCQs, then that will give an idea that how many number of questions from that particular topic can be asked. So that is blueprinting. It needs to be done in detail, at least for once, so that we get to know the structure of our paper. I can't talk about much detail here only, but these are some points regarding the blueprinting. Now regarding the university assessment practical, again it will be of 100 marks. So I have divided into this. So up till now it was of 40 marks, rather 30 marks for us, because 10 marks were for Viva. So we used to take only one case presentation. But now since the number of marks has increased, we can have 2 case presentations of 15 marks each. Then radiology, that is X-rays in ENT or ophthalmology, it can be of 10 marks. Instrument 10, audiology 10, then bones 10. Then see, we have to assess the ADCOM also now. So I have kept 10 marks for that also. Then Viva, which is to be included in the practicals, I have kept 20 marks. So it total comes to 100, but again, it may vary from institute and university. Now moving on to the last part of my talk, it is regarding the remedial measures. Remedial measures, they say that once the student completes all the internal assessment, and if he is not getting 50% in aggregate or 40% in individual theory or practical, then he cannot appear in the university examination. So what is the solution? So the MCI and now the NMC, it suggests that there should be some mechanism for such students to again appear in some examination so that they improve their scores and the internal assessment scores, which makes them eligible to appear in the university examination. But when it is to be done, how it is to be done, who are the eligible candidates, not much detail has been given regarding this, and that is left for the individual university and the institutes to devise their own remedial measures for such students. But what I feel is that instead of waiting for all the internal assessments to complete and then taking again the exam of such students, the remedy should be built in with the formative and the internal assessment. That is, whenever we are taking an exam, if the student does not perform well, then and there only we can give the feedback, take another exam and make him eligible for the next exam, rather than waiting for the preliminary examination to end. Because this, according to the document, the remedial measures can be between the prelim and the university examination. But maybe it is difficult. So I had written one guest editorial in March last year. So I'll be sharing with every one of you, in which I had tried to understand the concept of remedial measures for internal assessment. So that was published. I'll share it with you. Now this is an example to understand the remedial measures. Now suppose if a student gets 50% marks in theory, internal assessment here I'm talking about, and 50% in clinical, total is also 50, so no need of any remedial measures. If the student is getting 40% in theory, 60% in practical, but total is 50, again there is no need, because remedial measures are to be applied when the child gets less than 50 in aggregate or less than 40 in any particular thing, theory or practical. So in both these cases, there will be no need of remedial measures. But let's see the example 3, that is C. Here a student is getting 60% in theory but 30% in practical. So overall his percentage is again 45. So it needs to be 50 and this needs to be 40 to make him eligible. But here only a practical retest will be required because he is already eligible in theory. Similarly, in example D, if we see, he is not eligible as per the total score also. This should be 50 and these individually should be 40. So for this student, theory as well as a practical retest is required. So remedial measures, if we see that, then they should be tailor-made. For some students, it will be only for theory. For some students, it will be only for practical. For some students, it will be for both theory and practical. So again, there should be a mechanism. We need to devise a mechanism so that we conduct it smoothly. But again, rather than waiting for the final internal assessment after the preliminary examination, we can devise measures where we can regularly take the remedial measures so that the child becomes eligible after the finishing of the preliminary examination. Because after the preliminary examination, definitely the child is, or a student is in stress. So we cannot again bombard him with another set of examination, and moreover it will increase our work also. So it is better that we devise mechanism to apply the remedial measures along with the internal and the formative assessments. So thank you very much for your patient listening. And as we know that for 2 days we have festive season in our country. So wishing everyone Bihu, Lohri, Makar Sankranti, Pongal, whatever you are celebrating. So thank you very much for your listening. So if there are any questions,
thank you, Dr. Ajit. That was really comprehensive and fantastic coverage of, exhaustive coverage of the whole topic. a very difficult
Thank you,
topic,
sir.
I must say. Difficult topic, I must say, going ahead. This will be one of the real challenges for all of us to develop good assessment based on the news. Not only that it's a change. We say that no, the teaching methods, after all that, even if it is CVM, teaching method does not change. But here is where the real change is happening now. Assessment, there are some real changes that are happening, including the compulsory nature of the internal assessment, the logbook aspects, and the mark system is changing. So many changes are happening. So you have given examples also. I think really worked on this topic, and it's really a guidance for all of us as we start trying to apply it in our practice. Few
Yes,
things. Who else is there? Dr. Anuja is there, madam? Dr. Anuja is there?
I think madam is not here and not visible.
Okay, yeah. I'll just start off with some few doubts of my own.
Yes, sir.
One thing you said in each posting, you said 2 each. So you're talking of 4 end postings. How is that? Is that what I think I didn't get that
Yes,
part.
sir. Actually, sir, in ENT we have 8 weeks of clinical postings.
Yeah.
Out of that, 4 weeks will be in phase part 2. I mean, second MBBS, that is phase 2, and 4 will be in phase 3, part 1. 4 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. So that means they will be coming for twice, huh?
Months. Yeah. They will be coming for twice. But sir, actually, I have again divided the 4 weeks
Okay,
also
you have
in 2
divided.
weeks.
Okay, that's right. Fine.
So they will be actually coming now for 4 weeks as per my division.
That I know.
4 times.
Yeah.
Yes,
You have
sir.
made the division. Yeah.
Because sir, I feel that 1 month is a long time.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well,
yeah. So if they come for 2 weeks.
But these things, I must tell everybody, this is Dr. Ajit has made a little bit of own this thing. It will be institutional, as he put in his disclaimer in the beginning itself.
Definitely.
That I would just like to pinpoint or just highlight the disclaimer once again. This is Dr. Ajit's own.
This is what I thought would be feasible at my place, and
maybe that's what it depends. It depends.
Maybe keeping the various aspects of the assessment in mind. So that is what I have devised. But again, it is very open to suggestions and improvement. Definitely, sir.
True. Yeah, all that we will once we are going to the practical aspects, we'll start applying that, and then people can say what is feasible for their own institutions.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah. So next thing, Ajit, this thing about MCQs, actually, if you have looked at in general the concept all around the world, actually the general trend is to do away with MCQs, except of course in unavoidable situations like the entrance exams and all. So the new thing that many people point out, actually, I can't remember now. I remember reading an article which studied about the relevance of what is called as the very short answer question. So it is almost like the answer would be literally like 1 word to 1 sentence maximum, but not an MCQ. So you create a question which makes them think. It could be an application thing also, not just a pure no thing. It could be a know-how or show this thing, an application thing. But where the answer, the student would have to not just वो कहते हैं ना कि ऐसे चक्कर गा के ABCD में चक्कर लगा के just opt for one option. Instead of that, student will actually have to think. But once having thought, he or she should be able to pinpoint to the answer. So a very short answer. So that is apparently the new concept is coming up. So I think this is again one thing which we should all look at.
Yes, sir. One more thing that I think that was also in the mind of NCA while framing the structure, because they have clearly mentioned that the MCQ should not be more than 20%. So they have given at least a capping that if you at all you want to use the MCQs, don't make it more than 20%.
My concern, I'll be very frank that I'm a very big fan of MCQs actually. But my concern is having seen many MCQs, having even all of you have maybe even seen NEET exam questions and all. Very few MCQs are really well made ones.
Yes, sir. Actually, preparing an MCQ is very difficult, and if you are actually doing item analysis, maintaining a question bank, then it solves the purpose. Otherwise, it may be not a good method. Yes, sir.
Most of the time, it becomes naam ke vaste, to be very frank.
So, yes, sir. If not framed properly, then it is of no use, sir. Definitely.
If there are 5 MCQs at least 3 will be such that the answer will be, very obvious, or out of 4 options, 2 will, it will be very silly type things. There will be 1 or 2 will be really testing the knowledge of the student rather than the street smartness. MCQ answering is not just about knowledge, they say. It's all about, also about being, street smart. So, just
Yes, sir.
intelligent guesses, educated guesses and all that. No? So
Yes, sir.
that's one of the reasons they say of generally gradually phasing out completely. So this is something I think we should also look at to have more of this very short answer questions.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's
One
one
mark.
more
They
thing.
can be in 1 or 2 sentences containing 1
Yeah,
mark each.
yeah,
Maybe,
yeah,
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 can be a
yeah,
better option. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
And Dr. Binu George has said that
Yeah.
2 postings of 4 weeks would be better option. Definitely. But again, as I told you that if we increase the number of assessments, then maybe we increase the validity of an assessment. So that was in my mind when I again divided the 4-week posting into 2 weeks. But again, it is open if it is feasible
Yeah, this will,
for.
this is very much a point of discussion actually, because each institution
Yeah.
would probably
Yeah.
prefer this thing.
So that will be according to the feasibility of individual institute and university. So that can be done.
Yeah, because many times what happens is uh, all this would also involve the matching with the other departments also. So
Yes,
maybe
sir.
you would prefer this, but Ofstal may not prefer that. So
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that comes
maybe.
into play. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And one more thing of devising into 15 weeks was that if we see that when a student comes for the clinical posting, then some postings are of 15 days and some postings are of 1 month.
Uh,
So
uh,
to
uh,
align that also, when I prepared it, keeping 2 weeks in the scenario, then it aligned well with even other departments. So that was also one of the
okay,
reasons. But
okay.
again, when we actually devise the curriculum, when we actually devise the timetable, things will be more clear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, I'm seeing Dr. Binu has written a very, very interesting and I would say very utopian thing. He has mentioned about uniform logbook, which can be
Uniform
implemented
logbook.
all over India. Our
Yes, sir. In
big
fact,
problem in
sir,
our
the
country is
NMC has
uniformity.
there's a logbook module also, sir,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in which they have given the
So,
format of the logbook, so that can
yeah,
be utilized. Yes, sir.
yeah, yeah. But in our country,
Good evening,
uniformity is
sir.
always a huge, huge challenge.
Yes, yes, sir.
This is Dr. Rashmi here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good
hi,
evening, madam.
Rashmi, please. Sorry, I
Good evening, Dr.
overstayed my
Ajit.
comments. Please go ahead.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, no, just to comment on this part about 4 weeks and 2 weeks posting.
Yes,
In
madam.
ophthalmology, earlier also during the second phase, we used to have 2 weeks posting, and I
Yes,
have been conducting end posting exam for the 2 weeks posting.
yes, ma'am.
Practically, we find it very difficult end posting at end of every 2 weeks
Yes,
because I
ma'am.
have been doing OSCE since I think almost 4 years for them. And your 2 days go in that assessment only, 2 Sundays go away, and if
Yes,
there
ma'am.
happens to be a festival. So one of
Uh,
the practical problems in a 2 week short posting, you effectively get very less time with the students for training them as
Mm-hmm.
compared to a 4 week block, where in
yes,
spite
madam.
of all of these, students have time to practice, independently demonstrate, history taking, case taking. So, because this almost last, I think, 4 years we have been doing regularly end postings at fourth term, sixth term, and seventh term. So,
Yes,
I
madam.
don't know,
Yes, madam.
my practice, I just prepared the timetable for our phase, this thing, and we have still continued with the 4+4 model, not
Okay,
made it,
okay.
broken it up into two
Broken it.
periods.
Okay, okay, okay. That can be done, ma'am. If it is not feasible and there are technical problems, then again 4+4 is maybe a better option.
But I agree with your opinion that, maybe institute to institute, the way the feasibility, the department's
Yes, ma'am.
capacity to conduct such frequent exams in an objective manner. If the capacity is there, they
If
can
it is
probably have a look
feasible,
at it.
yes, ma'am. If
But
it is feasible,
yeah,
then
but
better we
this,
can have many number of
we are all
examinations.
learning.
Yes, ma'am. But if it is not feasible, then 4+4 is as good, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I realize one more thing. Even in the normal 4 weeks posting which we have, at middle of the week, the later part of the, let's say the last week, when a
Yes, ma'am.
student presents the cases, we can make it sort of a formative assessment without
Yeah,
giving
yeah, true.
marks,
Yeah,
like
Yes,
a
ma'am. So
practice.
yes, ma'am. That is
So
what
they are.
yes, ma'am. So that is what I said, that they should present seminars,
Yeah,
they should write reflections. So for those
correct.
for those activities, there should be allotted some internal assessment marks in the form of the logbook.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yes,
really
yes,
have to drastically change, incorporate all of these changes.
yes,
Yeah.
ma'am,
So,
definitely.
and Dr. Ajay, just to compliment you, very, very well presented, and you have really picked up things from all across for assessment. So and
Thank
it was a really well presented, including your takes on, how you would break it up. So
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
very good. It will definitely give ideas. They may change it,
Yes, ma'am.
depending on things, but you have almost put together all the points which we need to know from Opthal ENT point of view.
Yes, thank you. Thank you
So
very much, madam. Thank you.
yeah.
So any other questions and discussion? Sir, there are actually no more queries, I suppose. So can we end here, sir?
Yeah, Dr. G, Dr. Nee, I have a question for everyone. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wondering, since 2019 batch is going to be joining us now in phase 2, does that
Yes,
mean
ma'am.
our logbook has to be started now?
Madam, actually, logbook, I
Because
think they have given two options. That is for subjects. Either it can be subject wise or it can be a phase wise. Now, if it is
correct,
subject wise,
correct.
then it will have to be maintained longitudinally. And if you are taking it,
Exactly.
I mean, if it is subject wise, yes, ma'am. So if it is, for example, if you are preparing a logbook for ophthalmology, then the same logbook the student will carry in the second phase. The same logbook he will maintain in the third part one. But if you are making a logbook, your institute is making a logbook phase wise, then whatever ophthalmology things are there, he will complete in the phase 2 logbook, and phase 3 logbook, which will be a separate, and he will complete there. But we'll have to maintain it across phases, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
actually,
So
I
no,
think
what I was trying to
Dr.
say is
Rashida, I
that
understood.
right
Dr. Rashida's
now,
doubt was that whether to start from day one when they come, when they join.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
my point
You
is
have to do it,
with
ma'am.
within this 1 month, I think by 1st March when the students are coming, we all will have to be ready with our logbooks, whether it is
Yes, ma'am.
longitudinal or whether it is with the phase. So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is
We
an
have to be ready
immediate
with the
challenge.
logbook.
Besides, we all will have to be, ready with our versions, because everyone was thinking, ENT, Ophthal, all the clinical departments are still far away. But actually, they are not. They may be just a month away.
Yes, ma'am. Well, because some of our postings will be in the second MBBS also, so we'll have to maintain the logbook there also, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. Is there any participant or faculty here who is using e-logbooks in their college? Or are we all on print still?
Not, ma'am. Not at our institute. We are using the physical books.
For me, we have opted for print, continuing with print even this year with the 2020 batch also.
Okay, madam. We are continuing with print only,
Okay.
ma'am,
I
at
just
our
wanted to know
institute.
if some experience if somebody is doing that. So,
Okay.
okay, so I think it was a really nice session, Dr. G. Good, nice.
Thank you, madam. So, should we end here, ma'am? Sir?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
fine.
you for attending. Thank you, Dr. Ajit,
Thank you.
for the good
Thank
session.
you, sir. Yes, sir.
We'll meet
Thank you.
again next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good night, everyone. Thank you.
Then.
Thank you.